This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Hedge Knights of Westeros? This is Steven, your host with Mentology Podcast. I have my lifelong friend Josh on, and we're talking about the first story in A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms by George R. R. Martin. This is The Hedge Knight, and we'll get into some talks too about what we've seen so far in the TV show.
Yeah, I think that this is a good time to review, get a sense of the TV show about how it lines up with the book, and I think we have a good sense of what kind of adaptation it is. So I think that this is going to work out pretty well. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, overview.
yeah.
I think we'll say, well, we don't want to do too many spoilers because some people maybe have only seen the TV show. So maybe we start by just kind of like talking about what we've seen so far in the TV show, and then we'll say like, okay, we'll talk about the rest of the story.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think I just want to give like a just big overview of the show. If you've never seen, honestly, if you've never seen anything in Westeros before, this like could be a fine time for you to jump in, I think. I was talking to some family that hadn't seen Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon or read any of the books or anything, and I was like, "Hey, if you guys want to watch it, like it's fine. You'd be totally fine too. You might not appreciate everything, but I think that it could be a good entry point for someone that's like maybe not ready to fully commit to the intensity that is both House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones."
Hmm. Yeah, definitely a smaller stakes story, the common man, small folk story. So maybe people can get behind that without too much investment. It's low commitment because it's only 6 episodes and they're like half an hour, 40 minutes or so is all.
And you're not being asked to track, 15 great houses and minor lords and ladies and battlefield tactics and
Right, right.
like it's pretty approachable for a lot of people, I'd say.
Yeah, you're not gonna understand who the Baratheons are and who the Targaryens are and how this person is related to this person before and after the events and all that stuff. But if you're okay not knowing that, then yeah.
I think it's totally fine. I also think that you're not going to get I don't ever see the show as getting to the highs of like Game of Thrones did and probably House of the Dragon just because it doesn't quite have that set up, where there's not going to be huge emotional payoffs of like ton of things coming together. But I think
Yeah.
that for what it is, yeah, I think it's doing what it is doing really, really well. I just don't
Hmm.
think you're getting that grand epic scale out of it that you would in
Yeah.
House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones.
Yeah. And it has the same kind of tone and themes, but not as grim, not as bleak, maybe as some of the events of the other series.
Hmm.
Like
I
there
would say
is
it's like
there's a lot of that, but it's also maybe a little more triumphant at the
I would
end,
say if you're
kind of.
I, yeah, I would say if you're taking the happiest plot lines from both House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, then it would probably be in line with that,
Okay.
and not layering on all the other kind of intensity
Uh,
and grim and dark that permeate the other shows.
yeah. I think one thing that is kind of unique about this story, just from a really high level, is our protagonist, Sir Duncan the Tall, or Dunk the Lunk, or whatever you want to call him. He's not a competent person, really. He's able to do things still, and it's interesting to follow. But a lot of times, stories that I like, the protagonist is very competent, sometimes hyper competent, to the point where you're like, this is unbelievable how someone could be able to do all these things, but I usually don't care about that. But this is a dude who isn't really all that smart, but has a big heart and has big dreams, and it's a little unique in that sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's somebody that's like say developmentally disabled, right? Like he's just kind of more of an
Yeah, he's
average
just not
person,
right,
not
right.
not super, kind of socially awkward at times and doesn't know the exact right thing to say. And just if
Uh-huh.
you were to follow an average person, I'd say that this is who you would follow.
Yeah. It's like if you made the comedic relief character the main character.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I like
And
it.
in that, yeah, he's a fun character to follow. And then he has a fun relationship with Aig, who is his squire of sorts. A little bit of a mystery here because this kid seems, maybe smarter than he should. What's going on here? You find out what's going on pretty quickly, but I think that relationship is really fun.
Yep. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think overall, I do have a few issues with this season, and maybe this is where we get into spoilers. But do I want to talk about that, or do I want to talk about the book first? What do you think?
Well, do you want to just maybe talk about the first couple episodes before you do
Yeah,
spoilers
sure.
for the rest of the series? Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that the comedic relief can get in the way a tiny bit. Not to the extent that it can in other properties like the MCU or something like that. Like we're not in a Thor Ragnarok situation, you know.
Hmm.
I think my biggest my biggest example, which I referenced this on the Discord, it got a chuckle out of me at the time, but it was when the triumphant music started playing of the Game of Thrones theme, the do
Right.
do 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 do, and then it just cuts to him defecating. Uh, that like it's just like almost is kind of
Kind of slapstick.
making the well, and just like making fun of the legacy a little bit in a way that
Uh-huh.
I can see them like, okay, we're setting the tone that we're not going to take this entirely too seriously, but it's kind of like I think it was one step over the line of like I still want them to not like
Yeah.
trash what I love about Game of Thrones.
Right, right.
And I think that
Yeah,
crossed that
yeah.
line for me.
Yeah, don't crap on it,
Yeah,
is what you're saying. Yeah.
both literally and figuratively. Yeah,
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was incredibly heavy-handed. It was like the
yeah,
most obvious way you could possibly say, this is not a Game of Thrones.
yeah, yeah. It felt almost like something like Scary Movie would do, or like a parody, a parody movie would
Hmm.
do, where it's like there's a trope that's going to happen that people usually like, and then something completely ruins that or whatever. Yeah, Scary Movie does that all the time. And I like that in something
Sure.
like Scary Movie, but this isn't a parody of Game of Thrones. It's just meant to be in the same world without as heavy or high stakes. Not
Hmm.
quite parodying it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's basically as close to cozy fantasy as you're gonna get in Westeros.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
which which is great because that's how I felt reading the book too. So I think it's doing that
Uh-huh.
pretty well.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but other than that's like a pretty minor nitpick. I love the cast has been great. I've loved the music. Like besides the referencing the Game of Thrones theme that they kind of, but
Uh-huh.
I really like more the bluegrass style kind of
Uh-huh.
music. I'm digging it. Yeah. My wife she's in kind of a country bluegrass band, so she plays the mandolin and stuff. So I've become very partial to kind of bluegrass music. So
Uh-huh.
it's really
Uh-huh.
fun. It's really fun hearing that. I love that, and the scenery has been beautiful. I don't know what are some of your kind of higher thoughts on the show?
Yeah, it follows it's basically what I was expecting after reading the collection of short stories. I think it's, really embodying the spirit of it, and it's done pretty well. I thought maybe the dancing scene with Lionel Baratheon was a little goofy as well, and maybe went on like a little too far, but or a little too long. But but it's yeah, I think the humor is there, Sir Duncan kind of being an idiot and walking the wrong way and just not always, putting his foot in his mouth quite a lot. It hits all of those points, and the Duncan Egg, I think the kid playing Egg is doing a really good job, and
He's
that
phenomenal,
relationship
man.
is fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this kid is awesome. It's not like he's had to have any super intense scenes where I'm like, holy cow, he's pulling
Uh-huh.
this off really well. But I think his humor is hitting. Like the comedic timing, they play off each other really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's really no faces that I've known from anywhere else. So it's fun to have something that just, seems brand new and authentic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I also really appreciate. I think we both read the book pretty recently, and they will pull an entire snippets of dialogue pretty much exactly from the book with very little, if any, changes to them.
Uh-huh.
They did that with the opening sequence. They did that. I'm forgetting exactly which sequence, but there's a sequence in episode 2 that also had almost the exact dialogue. I think when he was talking, yeah, I can't remember exactly, but I
Hmm.
remember thinking, oh man, this is almost verbatim what the book is.
Right, right. Yeah, and there was probably some question after reading the short stories are all about 120 pages, and there's three of them in the book. And so there might have been some question of, this is a pretty short story. How are we turning it into 3 hours of TV? But they're doing a good job. I mean, they're adding a little bit, they're fleshing things out a little bit more. They added stuff like the tug of war contest and
Right.
the dancing around the Baratheon tent that I referenced. But they're doing it. I mean, they're doing that so they can flesh out these characters and make it more impactful later on when they have important roles to play, and they're doing a good job of just kind of letting you hang out in Westeros and enjoying it, even if like not all that much is happening. It's enjoyable TV.
I totally agree with that. And this is where I think just I hope that this becomes a blue point for a successful adaptation is finding why something works. If you need to change something or pad something out or cut something, be very intentional about it. Because it's not like they're like, oh, we need to pad this to we need some longer runtime. Let's come up with a new character and give them an arc. It's let's add a few more scenes for the characters you already know and love
Uh-huh.
to flesh them out a little bit.
Yeah.
And it just seems like that's so hard for whatever recent adaptations that we've gotten to be able to do that. And it just seems so obvious, whether it's a couple minute tug of war that adds some comedic relief and also shows how strong uh, Dunk is, and it's just like that's really good writing, even if it's
Hmm.
not like amazing dialogue or whatever. It shows that they understand the story, they understand the characters, they understand
Hmm.
what's hooking us as viewers.
Yeah. I think this is where we transition into spoiler stuff. So if you're not going to read the book and you don't want to know what happens in the TV show, you might want to drop off now. But to continue off of your point there, I think this makes sense to add more scenes. Specifically, we've seen more scenes with Lionel Baratheon. I imagine we'll kind of get the same with some of these other knights that he ends up fighting with at the end, because in the story, we don't really understand who these people are super well, and then all of a sudden they're all fighting for him, and
Yeah.
it maybe seems a little strange, or it's just not super developed. And so I think for TV it makes more sense to say, okay, this is who this guy is. You're a little attached to him. He's gonna fight for Duncan. You kind of know what he's about. And I imagine it'll be the same. Like we saw the two cousins that were fighting as well, and they're gonna be a part of it later. I imagine the others will show up as well
And
later down the
that
line.
I think that was the scene, by the way, that was almost verbatim, was when he was like when he was explaining that, oh, he likes to hurt him, so if he sees them later in the lists or something, then they're not going to be as effective or as good of
Uh-huh.
fighters. I think that's almost a I think that seemed to be almost verbatim from the book, by the way.
Mm.
Just a,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
uh, but yeah, I agree, and it does help me to put faces to the names because I feel like in the book there was, like you were saying, a little bit of like you don't really know who the important characters were leading up to
Yeah.
the climax of the short story. But in this one, just the framing when he went and I'm forgetting his name, but he was like, oh yeah, you should go be on the list. Just like whatever, that actor had really a lot of gravitas. And so like even if he doesn't really show up much more until that moment, I think you're gonna remember that scene pretty well because he acted it so well, and they
Hmm.
stayed there for a little bit longer than it seemed like they needed to. So I think that's the kind of thing that viewing it is going to be an improvement than just the written word.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean George R. R. Martin likes to have a lot of characters. There's a lot of family names that get reused. There's a lot of first names that get reused in different families, and so it can be hard to track all these
Mhm.
characters, and especially in a short story where there's a lot of names that are just kind of like, and this night and this night and this night, like, okay, who's important? I think it makes sense in TV to say like, no, like this guy is actually important.
Yeah. And again, I think TV it helps a little bit because you can give cues through like the costuming and the framing and the the who has lines of dialogue and everything like that. Because
Mm,
sometimes in the book it'll be like these all these five people in the room and you're like, oh, who was the one talking or speaking or whatever. And then in the TV show you don't really have that problem.
right, right. And to go back to Aig and the actor there, I think he's doing a really good job of conveying in a subtle way, this kid is highborn. Like he knows more than he should. And it's not like super obvious. I imagine there's some people who don't pick up on that, but it's obvious enough where you're like, no, this is a kid who doesn't seem to fit the role he's playing.
Yeah, 100%. Mackenzie put together. Mackenzie was like, "Is that kid a Targaryen?" I'm like, "Well, they were just talking about two missing sons," and
Uh-huh.
she was like, "Oh," so she kind of got put together three-quarters of the way there.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be fun to see how that all comes together. So reading the book, did you know that did you know that was
Yeah,
his identity? You'd already heard that?
I no, not going into it. I didn't, but I
Okay.
think I probably figured it out when halfway through or whatever. I think probably when most people
Mm,
figured out. I didn't really feel super cool guessing it like straight away or anything. But
sure. Yeah. I had already knew that he was a Targaryen. I don't know why, but from doing this for so many years, you just kind of know stuff about different books naturally. Anyway, but for some reason in my head, I was thinking that he was Maester Aemon, who's up with the Night's Watch, but Maester Aemon is his brother, so he does,
oh,
later appear in Game of Thrones, like 90 years later
oh,
when he's super old. But
I never
Aeg,
put that together.
yeah, yeah. Aig eventually, well, I mean, I guess I can tell you kind of down the line. This isn't really a spoiler for the books or yeah. But later on in his history, because the books only cover, like a year or two. Later on, Sir Duncan becomes the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and Aig becomes the king, and then Aig is eventually well, he is Daenerys's great grandfather. I believe
Oh wow,
he's the yeah, yeah. I think great grandfather. I might have mixed that up, but anyway, yeah. So down the line, there. That's why this is so fun because the humble beginnings of these guys that then play like really big roles. There's a scene in a Game of Thrones where Joffrey is reading through all of the Lord Commanders of the Kingsguard, and he like talks about Sir Duncan. He sees him on there. I think it's in the TV show as well.
nice. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, that would be that's almost something that would be more fun if you watch it in order, kind of. Like in historical. I don't know why I'm saying historical, but if you were to
Uh-huh.
watch House of the Dragon and then uh,
Right.
Night of the Seven Kingdoms and then Game of Thrones, like that almost might be a better way to do it. If I was just to
Yeah.
get somebody uh, to watch.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it does kind of make sense to say historical because I think one of the reasons I like Westeros so much is because it feels like such a deep-lived history, and that there are like all of these people that have all these little stories about them. And yeah, not a lot of it has actually been written down in detail, but George R. R. Martin does have like extensive notes. It kind of feels like Tolkien in that there are so much, recorded history of what happened over the years and years. And so there is like a really solid through line from House of the Dragon, from Aegon the Conqueror coming over all the way down, 300 years later to a Game of Thrones. You can see how all the pieces come together, and that's fun.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you have the sense of at least the big history pieces of, the in Fire and Blood, or well, House of the Dragon is the the TV show. But anyway, they
Yeah.
have the big civil war there. Most of the dragons have died at that point. They're no
Yeah, right.
longer any,
I,
yeah,
I
no
actually
longer any living.
reading the book, I like fast forwarded through a few parts where I think they were like giving spoilers for House of the Dragon because I didn't want
Oh,
that spoiled.
oh, so you actually don't know what's gonna happen in House of the Dragon?
I like know who wins, obviously, but I don't know
Okay.
like the kind of major events of how how it
Okay.
goes. So
Yeah.
they started getting into detail, so I kind of skip through that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
The most recent Targaryen history is the Blackfire Rebellion, where these Targaryen bastards had rebelled and tried to take the throne, and they talk about the Redgrass Meadow quite a bit, mostly covered in the third story, but that's like
Right.
the super important history for these years.
Right. The Blackfire, yeah, Blackfire Rebellion and whatnot. Yep.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Which could be another fun story to bring to the screen if seems like HBO is pretty committed to making a extended Westeros universe, but who knows with Netflix and everything. But
Until
that would
freaking
that would
Netflix
be
buys them.
yeah,
Dude.
that'd be an
Oh my
interesting one.
gosh. That would be
Yeah,
bad.
not to open up a can of worms there. But I've heard that they're going in on this Jon Snow Arya sequel.
I That's what I've heard. I heard that it was that the one that Kit Harington proposed was just super depressing, and HBO canned it because he was basically just going to talk about how John kept searching for Daenerys, I think, and then eventually died, and it was just like nobody like nobody wanted to make it.
Okay.
Uh,
Uh,
and so yeah, I don't know. Dude, I don't know. It's really hard not to have it be tainted by the whole Netflix thing. It really is.
yeah. Personally, I would prefer more stories of the 300-year history that George R. R. Martin has already established for us than going forward in time into kind of made up land with characters that we've already seen 8 seasons of. That's just my preference. But I don't know. I would certainly tune in to any other stuff they made.
Yeah, I think an Arya show would be really cool. I think Maisie Williams is great, and I think that like that character, I'd be more interested following Arya. But yeah,
Mm, yeah. Okay, takes on the end of this story. What are you excited to see in the final episodes?
I do. I think it would be really cool to have that whole final episode. Well, not the whole final episode, because I think that they're going to keep it the typical Game of Thrones, where the penultimate episode is the large conflict,
Hmm.
or the large kind of finale,
Uh-huh.
or climax, I should say. So there's going to be 6 episodes, right?
Yeah.
So you have two under a belt. I think next episode is going to be, let's see. So I think episode 5 will be the melee, right? And then
Okay.
episode 6, and I think that the melee is going to be awesome. I think that they're going to do a really good job with that.
Hmm.
And then episode 6 will be just kind of the falling action where he finds everything out, and what's his face
Sure.
dies tragically, and
Hmm.
he probably finds out about Egg. That's when he finds out about Egg in the book, right? Is after the melee?
I think it's
No, it's
before.
before
Yeah.
because Egg pulls. Yeah, because Egg gets people. Okay,
Yeah,
so
he finds out after he attacks Arion.
so that means episode 4 will probably be when he prevents the assault from the from
Yeah.
against the woman.
Hmm.
So that means we really only
Cancel.
have one. Yeah, yeah, Tinsel. So
Yeah.
we only have one more episode, which will probably be that like first joust he does, right? I'm trying to remember exactly in the book. He does something in the tourney, right?
I think the third episode will be him just kind of watching more jousting, meeting more knights, just kind of a little bit more of a buildup of the cast.
Do you want So here's what I was thinking going into the season. Do you want him to have more of a relationship with Tansel than he did in the book, or do you want it to be like it was in the book where they had one or two interactions before,
Uh-huh.
and I was torn. I was going back and forth on it myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a bummer that nothing ever really happens there, but I think it does work for the character really well.
To only have passingly met her and been kind of
Yeah.
infatuated with her.
Yeah, he's infatuated. He doesn't know what to do about it. He's just awkward and but in his mind he's kind of like made it up to be this big thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh, okay.
I
Fair enough.
mean, maybe it's unsatisfying as as a story, but I think it's good for this story.
So, so you don't really want another scene with Tansel in it until the or he goes back and gets the. I guess he'll go back and get the
Yeah.
shield.
Yeah, he'll probably go back and get the shield, have another awkward interaction, talk about it with Egg a little bit more, you know. Yeah,
It's a
I think it works.
commonality.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the melee as well. My biggest takeaway from the story was, man, people in Westeros are so irresponsible. Like, how are we letting the royal family and the crown prince and everyone just like go into melee and yeah, people are just dying. Like this is massively bad for the realm, but we're just doing this because we want to, because it's fun, because we kind of like this dumb night. Like it's funny and it works, but at the same time it's like, man, these people are not like this is so stupid.
I agree. And do you want to hear kind of a hot take? This makes me,
Sure.
yeah, this makes me respect uh, Cersei a little bit more than I did before because Cersei would have had none of that. If Jamie would have
Oh,
tried going off to do something like that, if Cersei had anything to say about it, he would not have done that, even if his honor would have compelled him to. If
right,
if if any of her kids, if Joffrey would have tried to go do something like, he would have gotten a cloud on the ear
right.
from Cersei. So there's my hot take: is that Cersei
Well,
learned from generations of terrible management of the royal family.
yeah, well, she also learned from Tywin
She
because Tywin stayed
That's
out of
true.
Robert's rebellion and ended up, you know, in the best situation possible.
Okay. And
Yeah.
also, she didn't have a great track record with her kids. So maybe I shouldn't really say that. But she gave it a better effort than it seems like it's going on here, at least.
Right, right. Yeah, you see a
These
little
guys
bit
are
more.
just losing. They're just losing their kids.
Yeah.
Don't even know where they're
To
at.
to jump ahead to the Mystery Night, the third novella, which we'll talk about in a future episode. You see a little bit of this responsibility with Bloodraven when at the end of that, instead of, you know, doing the heroic trial by combat or whatever, he's like, no, we're just gonna wrap this up because I don't need to do that.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Cool.
all right.
So yeah, I'm definitely excited to see more. I think the first two episodes have been right on with what we're wanting for this type of story. I'm glad they're doing this, and I think you know it's never gonna, like you said, it's not gonna get to the heights of any of the other Westeros shows, but for what it is, it's doing a good job.
I totally agree. And again, it is more approachable for a lot of people than both House of the Dragon and Game of
Yeah,
Thrones. So
right,
for what
right.
that's worth, I think it's a good offering to have in the catalog
Hmm.
of Westeros.
For sure. All right, yeah, we'll
All right.
do a future episode on the Sworn Sword and the Mystery Knight, which are the second and third. Overall, how did you like the three stories? Like, I would say, I think I liked the first and third like really equally. Maybe I liked the third a little bit more, and then the second one was not quite as
I,
thrilling.
I was I was gonna say almost exactly that. Only I tend to lean a little bit more to the first, so I go first, third, second, but by a
Yeah.
pretty close margin. I just think I like the first. I like more of the cozy fantasy feel of the first. The third was still it was got a little convoluted for me, a little bit harder for me to follow, I think.
Hmm.
Whereas the first just felt almost a precursor to cozy fantasy.
Right, right.
Up until
Yeah,
it
the
didn't,
whole
but you know.
the like the tourney environment and I mean we can all picture the Renaissance fair type of setting that we have here, and it's easy to just sink right into.
Yeah, it was funny. After we watched that, we were planning going to the Renaissance Fair with my brother-in-law, and because that's coming up for us here. It starts next week, so
Oh, nice.
there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never been, so yeah,
Oh,
you'll have to review that for us.
I I think I've posted about it in Discord before. Usually when I go up,
Mm,
I'll throw a picture of on Discord.
nice,
But
nice.
yeah.
Cool.
All
All
right.
right, yeah, that's a wrap for a quick review here. If you want to talk with us more at Phantology, you can join our Discord. Invites are in the episode description below. And until next time, see you later.
All right. See ya.